going on, boys and girls? Oh yeah, baby. Jordan here, back with another episode on the Habsolute Dogs podcast. So the NHL has officially set October 7th as the NHL regular season start date. So we know what that means. It means that us degenerates can all come together and finally start preparing for mock draft season. Today I'll be talking about one element that tends to be overlooked when you're drafting your fantasy hockey teams, and that just happens to be the goaltender situation. Now, I play in a fantasy hockey league myself every year. Shout out to the Shit Rope Showdown. Basically, we're 12 buddies, and the league is a head-to-head category style that counts wins, goals against average, save percentage, and shutouts for goalies. So the strategy and players that I'll be talking about today are aimed at these categories. Just keep that in mind. Now, with leagues like this, drafting goalies is kind of a weird situation. It's actually quite crucial that you draft goalies at the right time in your draft, more so than other leagues, I find. In my experience, I definitely don't want to be the first person to draft a goalie, or the second or the third, for that matter. I find that my teams have often been more successful when I wait before drafting goalies too early. Because when you draft a goalie or goalies too early, it often comes at the cost of 1 to 2 really good player picks that could have went towards producing for your other categories that outnumber the goalie categories. So there's obviously more categories to fill for your forwards and defensemen than there is for goalies usually. Also, the thing with goalies is that they can be exceptionally deceptive. It's one of those positions that can really hit or miss for no obvious reasons. So just because you take the top-ranked goalie from the list or the second-ranked goalie off the list, it's a really deceptive position, and any goalie can have an off year at any given time, even after a fantastic year. So it's definitely a position to make sure that you adjust your roster accordingly. I'm a firm believer that you need 2 goalies on your squad to maximize wins and balance out your goalie stats. A lot do the 1 goalie strategy and just do ad drops during the week to reach your minimum goaltender appearances. And it's not a bad strategy. I've done that a few times, but I don't think that it's as effective as having 2 underrated goalies that can combine to give you wins and a decent goals against average and save percentage. So that means that you need to get 2 goalies that can get you a good number of starts for more win potential, and that are on teams that allow a decent amount of shots but play good defensive structure. So when you've got goalies that can kind of yin and yang each other in the save percentage, goals against average department and the win department, then your 2 goalies, they create 1 good goalie. And that's what you want to do with your goalies and pretty much the rest of your team, right? Like, you're drafting multiple players to, at the end of the day, create this 1 mega player that will fill out your categories. Kind of that's how I see it, at least. So I think that this is the best way to go for goalies. Wait until the rest of the board have picked off maybe the top 6 or 7 goalies, and then I'd make your move for the next best option to play in your 1G spot. Pause. Your 1G slot. And then once you grab him, that 1G, then you can wait probably another 2 rounds or so before getting your 2G, or you can even wait until the very end if you're looking for a deep sleeper. That's also something you could explore. So I'm going to go through my top 5 names that you should look out for good value for your goalies, and I'll even mention at the end 1 honorable mention. So here are some of the names that should be there around that range that I was talking about, and that I think you could have some really good value with heading into the 2025-26 season. So personally, my number 1 goalie target, I mentioned him before, would be Filip Gustavsson. He's got the potential of getting you 30 plus wins next season and a decent GAA and save percentage, as he's shown in the past. This year, I don't see why he couldn't put up 32 wins and, quite similar peripherals. So that would have him ranked around that area as well. He's got little to no competition in Minnesota. Jesper Wallstedt is still going to be a clear backup, with Gus getting about 55 to 60 starts, in my opinion. Yes, the Wild are a little bit flaky, but they're not a bad team. They perform actually above average compared to the rest of the league, usually, and that's what we're looking for here. We're looking for the averages and the probabilities. So they had 97 points last year. I can picture a similar result this year. Gustafsson is 27 years old, should be right in his prime years. I think he should put together a pretty nice season next year. And to me, he represents one of the better potential values. So I'd look for probably a 40 to 50 rank range this year in leagues such as mine. And if your 1G can have that kind of finish, that's definitely a positive. My number 2 goalie target would be Adin Hill. So he plays for the Golden Knights, so we know he should be picking up a really good amount of wins. And they don't let in an overwhelming amount of goals. They play a really good defensive structure. He had 32 wins last year with a 2.46 goals against average and a 906 save percentage with 4 shutouts. No reason why he can't put up similar numbers this year, and he should finish ranked in that mid-50s range. He does have some competition a little bit with Akira Schmid, but as long as Adin Hill is healthy, he should be getting the bulk of the starts no matter what. I'd say that it's probably going to be like a 65-35 split. So, as long as Adin Hill is healthy, I think he'll still get the bulk of the starts over there in Vegas. And he's just got a really good situation out there. Oftentimes Adin Hill can be overlooked in drafts, so he's a guy that I'd keep an eye on if ever he drops a little bit. Really good value. My number 3 goalie target would be Dustin Wolf. To be honest, I'm close to being at a toss-up between Dustin Wolf and Adin Hill. Wolf is 24. He's coming off an insane rookie campaign considering his surroundings in Calgary. Some might expect a sophomore slump. I don't see it that way. I think Wolf is good enough to shake that and string together, 2 back-to-back good seasons. Calgary doesn't look that bad on paper either, and they got 96 points last year, which I think they can replicate. And Dustin Wolf is getting all the starts over there with no competition. He had 29 wins in 53 starts last year with 3 shutouts, a 2.64 goals against average, and a 910 save percentage, and he finished rank 82. So he should eclipse 30 wins this year, I'm thinking, with more starts. And I can even see him improving his GAA and save percentage and finishing in that maybe 60 or so rank range. So another really good value goalie that you can get in your mid to later rounds. And again, if you can get a goalie as your 1G that can finish in that range, it's obviously really good for the rest of your team because you know that you waited to get that goalie, and it means that you had a better chance at getting, those top forwards or defensemen in your earlier rounds. So yeah, Dustin Wolf, a really good candidate there. My number 4 goalie this year would be Sam Montembeault. It might be because I'm a Habs fan, but I do think Sam Montembeault will be putting together his best season next year. I think he's due for that breakout season. The Habs are only getting better. I see them having a similar season to Minnesota last year. And with Montembeault, he should be getting, I would think, about 55 starts or so. And I think he can reach that 32 to 33 win area. And I think he can improve his goals against average to, let's say the 2.6 range, save percentage around 909, let's say. That would be my prediction. So I honestly think there's a chance that he will be available in the final rounds of your draft. So this is someone that you can definitely target and will give you that really good late value. My number 5 target is Pyotr Kochetkov. So I know that a few of you will be upset with this pick. He also burned me a little bit last year. But overall, he's not a bad goalie and he's in a really good situation. Fantasy goaltending has a lot to do with circumstances and situations. And Kochetkov he's in a really good one in Carolina. They're a really good team. They play a sound defensive system. They win. And Anderson isn't getting any younger. He's not getting any less injury prone. So Kashetkov could get a sneaky good amount of starts next year, and he should get you a good number of wins. He's also young and should technically be better, we hope, from one year to another. I think he's got really good value as a deep 2G slot goalie to complement your 1G spot. Pause again. I think he's going to do better this year. He had 27 wins, and he still put up 2.6 goals against average, with unfortunately a 0.897 save percentage. I think that he will get those numbers up this year. When I say numbers up, I mean his save percentage. His goals against average could be around the same mark. I don't see why he can't improve, though. Again, he's not an old goalie. Carolina seems to have gotten better from one year to another. So I think that he's fully capable of picking up a couple more wins and improving on those stats. I think he's a good option for your 2G slot. My honorable goalie target mention would be Karel Vejmelka. He could be a deep sleeper this year at this position, and he's probably not even going to be drafted in a league like this. So you could realistically wait until your very last pick to draft him as your 2G. He's 28 years old. He's starting goalie in Utah with no competition. Yes, I agree that they play in a difficult division, but I think Utah can win a few more games this year than last year. I think they've actually gotten better. They've looked pretty good. The other thing, too, that may not sound great, but it's actually not bad for save percentage stats, is that Utah does seem to allow a lot of shots. So Vejmelka faces a big bulk of shots during his games. So if they can manage to get a couple more wins than last year, the amount of shots that he faces should lead to a better potential save percentage at the end of the week when you combined all of your goalie stats. You know, because, for example, if you have your 1G, let's say you got Philip Gustafsson, and unfortunately he goes through a game where he only faces 23 shots, but he let in 3 goals. So he'd have 20 saves on 23 shots. That wouldn't give him a really good GAA. His save percentage wouldn't be too hot. But let's say he picks up a win despite that. Well, then you've got a goalie like Karel Vejmelka that could get you a bunch more shots. And let's say he faces like 32 shots. Well, that's great, because if he saves, let's say 30 shots, that can pump up your goalie stats overall, your save percentage overall, because you've got more shots to play with compared to the goals that were let in. So it's not a bad idea to kind of have like a 1-2 punch back there, where you've got a goalie that you feel can get you those wins that you need on a good team, and maybe a goalie that's on not necessarily a great team, but a team that can still win and perform. And maybe they face more, maybe they let like more shots against, so he can fix up your save percentage. So when you've got those kind of goalies that can complement each other that way, it can create some good category stats at the end of the week overall. So I think that's something to consider. Yeah, I mean, I could see him having a top 100 finish, and for you to take a late flyer on him, like with your last draft pick, why not? You know, he could have like 28 wins this year and improve his stats overall. So I don't see that as a bad option as like a last pick in your draft, if you're looking for that second goalie. So those are my top goalie targets heading into next year's draft. That will personally be my strategy. I think that if you adopt the strategy for your goalies, you're going to have a much nicer team up front, all while having underrated value in nets that can steal you just enough weeks to take you deep into the playoffs and even win you the title. And honestly, worst case scenario, if they don't pan out, there are goalies literally every year that you can swap in off the waiver wire to replace your underperforming goalies. And this is why I don't like putting too much stock into drafting high on my goalies. I never want to be the one to take the first 3 goalies off the board, honestly. Unless it's like incredible value where they dropped way below where they should have been, obviously. I I just think that there's more value in waiting to get those goalies that you want on your team, because then it allows you to draft those better players on your roster, forwards and defenseman wise. And because you can always pick one up off waivers to replace your bad goalies, like, it's a lot easier to stomach when you're dropping a goalie that you drafted in the later rounds of your draft than dropping, a goalie that you drafted in like, let's say round 5 or whatever. He was like the 3rd best ranked goalie on the list. You drafted him, you were high on him, and then he's not performing well. Those types of goalies are tough to drop because you get emotionally attached and you feel sick to your stomach doing so because you drafted them so high. So doing it this way, at least you won't have to feel as bad when you replace them for someone off the waiver wire, perhaps, that is having a better start to the year. And every year that happens, that there's someone like that. So that's how I would go forward with that. The alternative route is you can trade for one, right? If one of your goalies are not performing, then just take whatever goalie is actually performing on your team, or maybe use one of your good forwards or defensemen that you drafted maybe a little bit later and go get yourself a good value goalie if someone's ready to give one up. I think that trading for goalies is a lot easier than trading for a forward or a defenseman. Usually goalies carry a little bit less value in trades unless they're the absolute top-ranked goalie. But I do think that it's an easier fix than trying to replace a forward or defenseman that you could have drafted in the 3rd or 5th round of your draft, for example. So that's it for me. On that note, cheers everyone. Feel free to share your feedback on the strategies that have worked for you in the past, your feedback on this strategy that I'm proposing. If you have any questions about your fantasy leagues, whatever, I'm always up for discussions in the comments. And I love the back and forth, especially when it's about fantasy. I know usually my videos are going to be more HABS related, but I will throw in some fantasy related videos here and there like this one. So hope you enjoy it. And that's it. Peace out, my dogs.